Hi, boys and girls. We're going to start today off by doing a whole group read of Chapter 4, A Famous Ship. But before we turn to Chapter 4, we're going to look at some of the pictures that we skipped over in the beginning of our reader. So if you could turn to page 8 in your reader, we will look over some of the stuff that will refresh our memory about the War of 1812. So I'll give you a minute to get there. And as you know, the War of 1812, there was lots of things that caused us to declare war. We had impressment going on where the British Navy was capturing our sailors and forcing them in their navy. They were trading with the Native Americans, which really stopped our hopes for westward expansion because the Native Americans were fighting back with weapons. They were blockading the seas. Trade was interrupted, tons of things. So here we are on page 8, and the first picture here is of the USS Constitution. If you remember from our listening and learning read aloud, USS stands for United States Ship. So this was the United States ship, and its name was the Constitution. Also nicknamed Old Ironsides, and I had a few of you answer that question for me that I posed to you yesterday. Yes, the ship's nickname was Old Ironsides, and its real name was USS Constitution. So that was this is what a typical Navy battleship looked like back in 1812. If you look down here, this says a modern Navy ship. Modern meaning today. This is more what our Navy ships look like today. You could see they're quite a bit different. This one has lots of sails to it, and it was made of wood. This one doesn't have really any sails, and as you could see, it's definitely it's not made of wood. It's probably made of iron, some other stuff. It has radio equipment. That's what these towers or antennas are for. Definitely more modern than the ships were back in 1812. But we know that's okay because we know Old Ironsides really stood up to the battles, even though it was just made of wood and sails. So if you scroll down, we have another picture of a cannon in the 1800s. And this picture makes me sad because we would be going on a field trip towards the end of the month to Fort Delaware, down 97 in Narrowsburg, New York, and we would be able to see cannons and people dressed like this and just learn lots of history of our country and the United States back then. So it really would have tied in nicely, but unfortunately we can't do that this year. But I will find some information on Fort Delaware and post it around the times when we were supposed to go on the field trip. So we'll visit it through the virtual world. But anyway, this is what a cannon looked like, and some army men dressed in their uniforms, and you could see it was on wheels, and they had to push it around, and then this is how they would get it to fire and stuff like that. So then down below, again, we see American soldiers in battle. And as you can see, some rode on horses, some walked on foot. In their heavy, warm uniforms, they stood in rows. The first row would fire their weapons, and then they would kneel down to reload, and the next one would fire, and so on. So it's definitely a lot different than battles we fight today when we go to war. But that's what it was like back then in the 1800s. So now if we... Oh, wait, is there more? Nope, that's all we're going to talk about on those pages today. So if we scroll on down to Chapter 4, A Famous Ship. Dun, 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 dun. Chapter 3, we read that yesterday. Chapter 4, A Famous Ship. So if you can, while you're turning to Chapter 4, I'm going to go over some vocabulary words with you. I better move my face. So here we have document. In the story, we're going to hear the word document, and it's an official or important paper. Lots of times the president and the army or the Navy would send documents back and forth to each other, important papers. Branch. This is not like a branch on a tree. It's one of the three major parts of government. Our government is made up of three branches of government, and that's how we refer to them. Okay. Number 3 is Supreme Court, which is the highest court of law in the United States. 4 is string, and that doesn't mean like a string that you tie. A string referred to with in war means like a series of battles, a string of battles. Then we have the mast, which is the tall pole on a ship to which the sails are attached. So that's where those sails are attached, the really, really tall poles. It's called the mast. And then we have the word plank, which is a long, thick board. And you guys probably knew that because when you hear about pirates and stuff like that, you think of, hey, walk the plank, which is the long, thick board. Okay. So those are some words that we will come across as we are reading A Famous Ship. And we will begin. So, Chapter 4, A Famous Ship. The ship on the right is the USS Constitution. It was one of the ships that battled in the War of 1812. The letters USS stand for United States Ship. And there's the United States ship, the Constitution. The USS Constitution was named for a very important document, the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution lays out the laws of the land. It states what people serving in each branch of the U.S. government can do. It says what the President, the Congress, and the Supreme Court can do, and also what they cannot do. James Madison had helped write the Constitution. He had also played a key role in getting states to accept it. The people of the United States were proud of the Constitution, so they named one of their fighting ships the USS Constitution. So we were very proud of it, and we still are today. We still have the Constitution today, and it lays out the laws of the land. It tells what the government can do, Congress, the Supreme Court. It really just lists everything out. This way, we live a government for the people, by the people. And here is a painting of the Constitutional Convention where the U.S. Constitution was signed, and we've seen this picture in the past. During the War of 1812, the USS Constitution had a string or series of battles on the high seas. In one battle, the USS Constitution attacked a British ship. It was a hard fight. The sailors on both sides fired cannons. The guns blazed and smoked. The two ships drifted closer. Once they even bumped into each other. Cannonballs from the USS Constitution smashed into the side of the British ship. They made big holes in it. They ripped off a sail. They knocked down the ship's masts. The British ship fired back, but its cannonballs did less damage to the U.S. ship. In fact, some of them bounced off the thick walls of the American ship. So here we were fighting at sea with each other really close together, and we were firing cannons and doing a lot of damage to their ship, but their cannons weren't doing as much damage to the USS Constitution. When the American sailors saw this, they cheered. "Hooray!" one of them shouted. "Her sides are made of iron." In fact, however, the sides of the ship were not made of iron, but very thick planks of wood. The wooden sides of the USS Constitution were much thicker than most ships. Good thing. Here's another photo of it. And remember, these are the masts again, the long poles that hold the sails. The USS Constitution won the battle. The British ship was so smashed up that it could not be fixed. The British had to sink it. When people were told about the battle, they became excited. They yelled and shouted. They waved flags and had parties. They treated the sailors of the USS Constitution as heroes. They also gave the ship a nickname. They called it Old Ironsides because its wooden sides seemed as strong as iron. Old Ironsides kept on fighting. It battled more than 20 times and never lost a battle. So the USS Constitution definitely lived up to its nickname, Old Ironsides. It was very strong. It played a huge part in the War of 1812, and it never lost a battle. And if you look down here, you can see here it is today. The USS Constitution is still floating today, and you can visit Old Ironsides in the Boston Harbor. So if you ever travel to Boston with your family and go to the Boston Harbor, you can see the ship from the dock. I think you can even pay to take a tour of the ship. It's not used in battles anymore. It's on display. This way people could see Old Ironsides and what it looked like and how it's different from American ships today. But it's there. It's a great part of our history. So if you ever go there, try to visit it. Okay. And that is our whole group read for today on our famous ship, Old Ironsides, or better known as USS Constitution. Tomorrow we will do a close read of this again. But until then, I want you thinking, because the next chapter is chapter 5, the attack on Washington, D.C. If you remember from our listening and learning, there was an important woman that played an important role in the attack on Washington, D.C. So if you remember who she was and what she did, please record that for me. Okay, thanks, guys.